to see that Wilmington, that Burgaw, that all the municipalities in this two-county region known as the 5th District doesn't join the ranks of Columbine, and Newtown, and Parkland, and all the other communities that have been so touched by this. And so we have met and listened, and we're going to continue to do that. But I want to specifically call on our superintendents and our sheriffs to talk about what they are doing. This is sometimes a hidden problem, and just to be clear, when a juvenile under the age of 16 is arrested, we don't have press conferences for that. In fact, they have to be kept confidential. So it might surprise you to know that just in my district, in my 2 counties, there are 10 young people in custody right now with varying degrees of offenses out of school threats that we've investigated. The sheriff in New Hanover County will give you some numbers that might be jaw-dropping in just a moment about how many of his resources are being tied up on these threats, because there's no such thing as a joke. We're taking these threats very seriously, and we're going to continue to do that. And so what I'd like to do at this time is turn it over first to Sheriff Ed McMahon and then to the superintendents to talk about kind of the scope of the problem and what we're doing about it. Sheriff?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Since February 15th, we have had 50 investigations into threats in our schools. We have charged 7 of our children with some type of communicating threats. So my plea to any students that are watching and to all parents is please take this seriously. Talk to your children. You know, it's been said that our parents are our best police. So moms and dads, watch what your children are doing. Talk to your children. We are taking this very seriously. And if the elements of communicating a threat are met, then you're going to be charged. So let's stop this madness and let's get on with, there's plenty going on out there. We don't need to create more drama for ourselves, for your fellow students. So again, please know that we're taking this very seriously, and if you communicate a threat, then we are going to charge you.
Thank you.
We sent a message to parents last week through our communication system, and we asked them to have conversations with their students about making threats at school. Because I'll reiterate what the sheriff said. We take every threat seriously. We will investigate every threat. And unfortunately, it has resulted in 7 of our students spending time with the DA and the sheriff's department. This is not a joke, and I need parents to have that conversation with their students to reiterate and remind them that this is not the time to be funny. This is the time to be serious about what's happening in schools. 50 incidents in our county is an unacceptable number. I've talked to my colleagues across the state, and it's happening in other places as well. I want us to be the leader in what we're doing in our schools. We're meeting tonight as a board. We'll be talking about safety. We'll be talking about what we're doing in our schools. We'll also be talking about an issue that doesn't get a lot of attention, and that's the mental health aspect of this. We have a great partnership with the county with mental health workers, but there needs to be more done to ensure that we're addressing some of those mental health needs of our students. And to parents, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. See something, say something. Social media is not the place to be having conversations about this. If you think something is wrong, contact a law enforcement official, contact a school official. We are seeing a lot of these having social media as a root cause, and you've got to be good digital citizens in this technological age. So have conversations with your students about what that entails and about the consequences of making false threats.
I'd like to reiterate what my colleagues have said about that, is that digital media's responsibility of both adults and students as well, is that we have to be good digital citizens, and we're going to have to take responsibilities for what we repost. That being said, like DA David mentioned earlier, we actually have formed a committee as well, a safety committee that we've worked on all year, and we're now moving that towards a campaign. So you will hear something called report, don't repost. And what we will do is establish a web presence. There will be a pendersafe.org and a pendersafe.com where you could go to receive all that information. That will be being rolled out within the next 2 weeks. We ask that you please, please, please get involved. As spoken earlier by Superintendent Markley, we need to understand that it is our responsibility to report. If you see it, say something. I do plead with the parents. Pender County has 4 arrests at this time. 2 are still in custody. And I plead with the parents to work with the school system, that we have to come together as a community to combat this and work in unity to make it work. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, back to not spreading rumor and reporting it instead. Are you finding, well, the sheriff probably could answer that. A lot of times you guys are chasing shared social media posts. If people were more responsible with what they're sharing, then it would help, and is this true, would help you find actual threats and not just...
Yeah, I think the question are we following a lot on social media? And absolutely we are. So we're following up with that. We're working with parents, with the school staff. But at that point, now we're taking detectives. Detectives are going out to your house, and we're asking to search your house for weapons, for things that could hurt other students. And this is taking time, energy, and this is not what we want to be doing. So absolutely, the things on the internet and that our children are posting are creating the majority of the problems that we're having.
Well, and I think, well, I'm sorry it was confusing what I was asking, but for instance, last week, one of the schools, there was allegedly they were on a lockdown because one person said it on one community, and an adult had posted it on a community neighborhood Facebook page, and then those people shared it on other pages, and parents were calling the school, and they were calling dispatch for nothing, like it wasn't even accurate. So would you caution parents to be a little bit more careful of what they're sharing on the internet?
Absolutely. If you hear about something on the internet and you're not seeing it yourself, but somebody else is saying it, call. You can call dispatch, you can call the schools, you can call us, and let us look into it and make sure, because there's a lot of those types of posts going on right now that are they're just lies.
And parents have got to monitor what children are doing with social media. And when it's just a computer, back when Ben started, you could one computer in the house. Now you've got children who've got phones, tablets, and other devices. As a parent, I cannot stress enough how important that communication with your child is and having access to their social media devices so that you can check on what's going on with those students. Phones are not, children don't have privacy rights with their parents. Their parents need to be able to see what their children are doing and be able to monitor what's going on.
Ben, I have a question for you. Could you walk us through hypothetically a juvenile arrest, what happens, where they end up going, and what a sentence for this making a false report would look like?
There are varying charges depending on what we're talking about. Threatening mass violence is actually a felony under North Carolina law now. That's a relatively new law. Back right after Columbine, we just had to charge the misdemeanor of communication of a threat, which is a much broader thing. That could include me just wanting to punch you, for instance, Fran, versus me wanting to blow up a school and saying that to a school nurse or saying it online. And so there are felonies and there are misdemeanors. We've charged both in this district over the last several days, and we're going to continue to do that. They have varying degrees of punishment. When a juvenile is arrested, that is something that's different than someone who's over the age of 16, and that age is going to be going up to 18 in December of 2019. And so right now, when a young person is arrested, they are brought before the Office of Juvenile Justice. We have the same team of people looking at every case. So Chief District Court Judge Jay Corpening, who authored a lot of what I'm talking about in the Safer Schools Task Force, has taken it upon himself to look at every case. Lillian Salsinas Bright, a prosecutor who has been doing this for 25 years, is the person I've specifically asked to look at all of these cases so that we can look at the individual facts of each case to determine whether the misdemeanor or felony fits. In terms of a juvenile petition, which is different than an arrest warrant or an indictment, that is not a public record, and that's why this is somewhat of a hidden issue, because for the families affected, when the officers knock on their doors or search their homes, they know about it, but the rest of you don't. And we don't typically talk about kids' cases. In fact, there's all sorts of rules about not doing that. What punishment can they face? For felonies, that's obviously a very serious charge that can prohibit you from ever voting or possessing a firearm, or there is the potential for incarceration. I will say that it also includes the possibility of having to pay for the cost of the response under that statute, so that if first responders are having to be pulled in, fire, EMS, and of course law enforcement, that's a response that can rack up a very high bill, and the parents under a civil liability term called respondeat superior could be held responsible for that. And so there's all sorts of ripple effects from these charges. Cases get expunged from records when someone is under the age of 16. Those who are 16 or older, 17 and 18-year-olds, and we have some of them in our high schools, obviously, this will follow you for the rest of your life. And good luck trying to get into college. Good luck trying to, shake that from your record if you have something like this on it. And so that's why we're being so careful to try and make these teachable moments at the same time that we are trying to protect everyone from this. We are not going to be the community where red flags were waving and we didn't look. We are treating every joke seriously, and we are going to continue to use whatever resource necessary to protect our children. And what I just want to reiterate again that all three of these gentlemen have said, we have other things we need to be doing. We need to be educating our kids. We need to be going after heroin traffickers, as we were just talking about earlier. We don't need to be running down all these fake threats and jokes and reposted stuff where parents make the best police. They need to get in charge and act like the adults, and they need to report something if they see it. They don't need to contribute to the gossip that's out there and feeding the fear that's sometimes in place. And as for the internet, I speak to I speak to about 10,000 kids every year in this district. Have been doing that for the last 14 years. And I've learned way more from them than I've ever taught them. We talk all about being online, about the social media aspects of hurting your reputation by posting something, whether it's a nude photo and sexting or it's a threat in this case. We have internet safety contracts available through my office. We give them out to all the schools. I urge parents to do what I've done as a parent of a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old and say, let's sit down together and go over a shared understanding of what it looks like in our house, of when you can be on the internet and what happens if any of these rules are violated. Because having a cell phone and a computer is not a right, it's a privilege, and one that should be taken away from kids by their parents if they're misusing this technology. That's the vast majority of these threats we're seeing now. And so we need to have this conversation as parents. And as a law enforcement community working with these incredible school officials, we're going to continue to share information and to run down these issues. But we need the community's help in seeing that this doesn't come to school to begin with. Any other questions?
I just want to hear from the schools. So one point that all of you made was the fact that parents need to communicate with their kids, and they really need to have that basis in order to find out if anything is going wrong. However, you do have those parents who then pin it on the schools because they expect teachers or faculty to look out for their children to see any abnormalities when they're at school. What kind of response do you have for those parents when they are expecting the school to monitor their kids more closely?
Well, it's a partnership. That safety starts with SROs in the school. They're in all of our schools. There are multiple SROs at the high school level. There are SROs at all the middle school levels. It starts with our folks, our guidance counselors, our mental health workers, school nurses, teachers who interact with those students every day. They're the ones who oftentimes will see something first and make that report. We have photo reports because a lot of those reports came into us. We passed those on to the Sheriff's Department. But that partnership is a three-way partnership. Ben talks a lot about a starfish. A starfish. And one of the legs of that starfish is the family. That family has to be a willing and able partner in what's going on. We, the schools, are going to work to make sure your students are safe. We've put in panic locks over the years. As we're rebuilding schools, we're adding safety features through things that we're doing with the bonds. We have school cameras, additional SRO resources that have come in from our elected officials who've put those resources in there. And then our teachers who are interacting with